Welcome to Budapest, where the 22nd IAAF World Cross Country Championships are being held at Kinsen Park Racecourse, just some 3 kilometers outside the city centre. The city of Budapest has been fought over by many nations over the years, but a new invasion has taken place this weekend as almost 800 athletes from all over the world have gathered together for 4 separate races, men's and women's contests for both seniors and juniors. Also incorporated into this championship is the final opportunity for athletes to earn cross-challenge points. Up to now, there have been 11 cross-challenge events throughout Europe, which form the cream of cross-country racing. For those high in the cross-challenge rankings, this will be their 5th scoring event, and it's doubly important as twice the normal points are earned here. The men's cross-challenge leader has controversially been left out of the Kenyan team, but are still odds-on favourites to lift their 9th consecutive team title. Indeed, such is the dominance of the athletes from the Rift Valley, that last year they won 3 individual titles and all 4 teams. This dominance, even in the junior ranks, represents a superiority from one nation, unique in the world of sport. And as athletes from the first of today's races, the junior women, get ready for their contest. ESTEVEZ, there is little chance of change.
That's right, Tim, and the Kenyan women didn't disappoint in the women's junior event. 4,300 metres in distance. It was the first of the 2 junior races. And right from the word go, the Kenyans demonstrated the tactics they were going to use so effectively. Sally Barsosio, the real star amongst their team, and really the only athlete that was actually wearing spikes amongst the other Kenyans, stormed off to the front and led her team on a charge which really wasn't headed all the way through the race. Sally Barsosio pushed hard all the way through, putting her teammate Rose Chariot to the 2nd place. And here in the finishing straight, she asserts her dominance as Rose Chariot tries hard to close, but she really can't. But the Kenyans behind her are producing a magnificent performance. 6 athletes in the first 7, only being separated by Gabriela Szabo of Romania, who finished 4th. What a magnificent performance from these young Kenyan girls. CHEPNGENO is coming through here now. And there's the team celebrating a marvellous victory. And I'm afraid the caption is wrong there, really. It was Chariot that followed in Barsosio, CHEPNGENO taking the 3rd space. But let's not forget that magnificent performance. 6 in the first 7 for the Kenyans. Cause for celebration, I think, really. Look at that score. 11 points. Only 1 away from the maximum in the team event. Two goals already in the bag for the Kenyan team. What will happen in the junior men's race? Slightly longer, 8,140 metres. And they're off. And one wonders whether the Kenyan men can produce the same performance they produced 12 months earlier.
Last year, Kenya took the first 4 places in this event and had 5 in 10, along with the Ethiopians who had 5 in 10 as well, to give the Rift Valley athletes total dominance in this age group. Well, a very fast start here, and it includes last year's victor, Philip Bosima, defending the title he won at the age of 16, making him the youngest ever male winner. But he was only 7th in the Kenyan trials, and that's a frightening indication, Steve Ovett, perhaps, of the strength of the Kenyan squad here today.
Well, I've just been speaking to the Kenyan national coach, and they said that they've had their best training group ever at high altitude in Kenya for the last 2 or 3 weeks now, and I think that that's shown the proof of the works, because really they've been dominating in the races that we've seen so far. But I think that we'll have to wait and see whether they actually start using the tactics which they used in the women's events to affect in the men's events. They usually start off very slowly in the men's events, Tim, I think, and start working their way through, whereas the women dominated from the word go. But as you look down through the picture there, you can see the Kenyan men starting to come through on the outside of the pack. There they are in the red of the Kenyan team. And it seems to be a fairly predominant tactic at the moment. Just go for the word go and just burn everybody else off. And that seems to be very effective. I don't see why they should change it.
No, you're right. One thing you can say about the Kenyans is they make these races honest. Taking a few hundred metres for their junior men here to get up to the front of the field. But they have now, and this is beginning to look remarkably similar to the charge in the early stages of the women's junior race. 4, 5, maybe 6, all 6 of the Kenyan athletes up in that leading group of 15 or so now.
Well, the Kenyans packing up front again, as we saw so often in the other events, and they're doing exactly the same here. Mosimum ploughing away up front, keeping the rhythm going, making sure that the pressure is on all the time, even over these obstacles. The Kenyans love to break their rhythm. They're so good at breaking the rhythm. They do it in the steeplechase to a devastating effect on the track, and they're good at the cross-country as well.
Moving wide from Mosimum, and it does look like the Ethiopian has thrown in the towel. He's dropping back now. He's worked very, very hard to stay with those two, but he's going back rapidly, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him pass in the next half lap or so.
Well, it's been nip and tuck between these two, but this looks like a decisive break here for Coman. He really is putting the pressure on Mosimum, but Mosimum is responding, and it's not far to go now. They're just coming round the final bend before they hit this long, long straight to the finish. Mosimum looks as if he's poised for the big kick, and he's coming up on his shoulder of his teammate, and now he's starting the long run from home, and just as he does that, you can see that Coman just wipes the sweat from his brow as if to say, right, I'm going to try my best, and these two really are fighting out neck and neck to the line.
Remarkable maintenance of pace here by these two. Mosimum pouring on the pace, as can Coman raise the sprint or not. As they approach the line with 24 minutes on the clock, Mosimum gradually widening that gap. The long striding Coman back in second place is going to take silver, and Mosimum retains his title from 1993. Another gold medal for Kenya, another gold medal for Philip Mosimum. 24:15 on the clock.
Followed closely by his colleague Damio Komen with 24:17. It was actually SIGEI from Ethiopia who came through. Alamei who dropped back dramatically over the latter stages of that race. But again, we hear the Kenyan national anthem. And that is the second gold medal for this young man, Philip Mosimum. Kenya again take the team with 18 points, Ethiopia second with 27, and Morocco did well for that bronze medal with 78 points.
First of the two senior races then, the women. 38 nations, 150 athletes, and there's the course. 3 laps plus 460 metres run into the finish, totalling just over 6 kilometres. In contrast to the junior races, this one likely to be very, very open indeed. The title holder, Albertina DIAS of Portugal, is running, and so is her great rival of the last 2 years, Katharina McKiernan of Ireland, who heads her on the cross-challenge standings by just 6 points. The pair of them will have to have a real race on their hands. Last year, just one Kenyan made the top 10, so it's far more open than perhaps the other races. Dead on time, and again a very fast start there over on the far end of this race course. Very quickly after that first 100 metres, they head into a left-hand bend, so all the athletes wanting to get that left-hand line, Steve, on the inside.
Well, I don't think it's going to be vitally important that everybody gets the inside tip, but I think what they're going to be doing is watching to see who actually makes a move even early on. We've seen in earlier races with the junior women that the Kenyan team literally blasted away, and I think that they're going to be watching to make sure there's no early move, because this is a very good quality field all through, and I think that they don't want really an early surge from anybody to take them by surprise, and that's what's happening. You can see a mass of women going across the whole of the course here. The going is very, very good. As you can see underfoot there, most of the runners are wearing shoes and finding that it's quite comfortable. On the race course of this sort of caliber, the grass is very spongy, and it's not going to cause any problems with people twisting their feet or whatever. And the only obstacles that are actually in this course at the moment are virtually man-made. So there you can see the whole of the field strung out now, and I'm sure that within the next few minutes, the top athletes will start moving their way through the pack up to the leading group.
Yes, indeed, with less than a minute and a half on the clock. The early stage of this race very different to the junior women's race, for example. Zola Peters there, moving towards the front, 3-3-4 in the green and yellow of South Africa. Also up there is Marina Denboba of Ethiopia, to the right of that leading group. And 2-2-2, one of the Kenyans, Helen CHEPNGENO, second in the Kenyan cross-country trials just a few weeks ago. And Katharina McKiernan also up there as well. So the pace picking up as they reach the first of those man-made obstacles. Just a few little things like that on the course to break up the pace, to break up the rhythm. and test these women, and certainly in the latter stages the effect of those obstacles becomes far more significant. But that's a big field out there, and at the moment nobody's showing at the front with any real advantage.
Kenyans started to make a move, and probably quite rightly so, trying to burn off some of the fast finishes in the latter part of the race. There you see they're just coming around the back part of the section of the course at the moment, and the rhythm, there's the red spot there, you can see that's indicating where the athletes are, and the rhythm on the flat course is obviously very fast, and that means that all of these small obstacles, although they're not the massive hills that we associate with cross country, can become sapping in the last part of the race, because your legs, obviously tired from the speed of the course, then has to find the rhythm of going over these obstacles and causing all sorts of problems. Here we go again, up a small incline and back down again the other side. I think that's going to have a devastating effect on some of these athletes. You see them slipping about a bit as it starts to slightly rain here today.
Yes, the wind's still getting stronger, the rain beginning to come down, and an athlete who's just moved through into the top 7 or 8 is Fernando Ribeiro of Portugal, a member of a very strong Portuguese squad here. Of course, featured Dias, their reigning champion. Helen CHEPNGENO leading at the moment, though, and trying to break this field up. Just 2 athletes going with her at this stage. M.DENBOBA of Ethiopia and her teammate Omoro. Now the athletes in that second group seed really need to try and move through here and get back to those 3, otherwise the medals are going to be gone.
I think so, but there's some good athletes there with a lot of experience behind them. And it's still early days, I suppose, if you think that the speed of those athletes behind them is very good indeed. Most of the Kenyan women we've seen are very strong, and I think they've been training together in a training camp and produced results that we all know they can produce. But I think that if they start pulling away here, people like Zola Petisi will come through and start pulling them back, making sure that the gap doesn't open too much. And I think that you'll see, maybe there's a slow motion replay of the going over one of the small obstacles here of the back part of the course. But as I said that, I think you'll see that these athletes are quite wise, not like the juniors. I think that if any gap opens up and it's a problem, you'll see someone start closing it down again.
Yes, dominance in this sort of race, far less easy. Well, as we say that, CHEPNGENO really beginning to make the others work now. M.DENBOBA going with her over those awkward bales of hay. And daylight very definitely appearing at the front of this field. Zola Petisi back there to the left of picture. Now back in 9th or 10th place. Ribeiro in the green of Portugal coming through well, wearing number 316 there. And 311, Albertina DIAS now in picture for the first time. The reigning champion has moved through into 3rd place, has recognised the danger and begins to attack M.DENBOBA in 2nd. And she hopes CHEPNGENO up in the lead, as we see Katerina McKiernan there move through, and certainly the Irish girl is struggling now, back in about 10th or 12th place.
Well, as I thought, CHEPNGENO's move now has become quite serious, and as you said, Diaz responded there. She's in 3rd. The reigning champion sensed that the race was on, I think, to a certain extent, even though they were probably waiting to see what sort of effort CHEPNGENO was going to put in. 2-2-2 there, CHEPNGENO starting to work hard on this part of the course, and you can see them all stringing up behind her. It's quite windy over that back part of the course, and you can see the flags fluttering in the background there. So this girl's working into a headwind all on her own, and she's doing a good job of breaking away, Tim. But here you see Diaz, 311, just watching her almost from the back there, sensing that she might be pulling away a little bit too far. She looks very comfortable up there, I must admit. And she's an 8:44 3,000 metre girl, so she's got the speed. So they've got to watch out and make sure that she doesn't pull away too far, I think.
And certainly the Portuguese in very good shape at the moment, but what kind of form must CHEPNGENO be in to be opening a gap as quickly as that? And it is growing back to Diaz, who has moved through to 2nd now. CHEPNGENO with a lead of some 40 metres back to the 2nd place reigning champion. Still looking quite relaxed out in front there. Some 7 minutes or so of running to go, as that's 1 lap of this course, which is just under 2,000 metres, as we see the rest of the field filing through. M.DENBOBA from Omoro, Diaz and Ferreira, that's the athletes in the 2nd group. But CHEPNGENO, who was 2nd in the Kenyan trials, well, has got things right today. It is very much about peaking on the cross-country circuit. There are so many races throughout Europe, and a lot of these Kenyans do come over and race frequently. Some might say too much on the circuit. But CHEPNGENO hasn't raced a great deal throughout Europe, but has obviously trained hard at the Kenyan camp that they hold for some 2 or 3 weeks prior to these championships, and everything seems to be going well for her at this stage. Look at that gap. Dias, the light tread of the little Portuguese, pulling her away from the women behind her, but she's still got a lot of work to do to get back to Dias, to CHEPNGENO. That's McKiernan there, who too is moving through. And I think 1 or 2 of these athletes, Steve, after a mediocre first half, are beginning to find their feet and pull through.
Yes, the pressure's on now. CHEPNGENO is really starting to pull her. She comes in front of us now at the main stand. They hear the bell. It's 1 lap. That must be a welcome sound to someone that's trying hard out front there to pull away from the rest of the athletes. Dias, I see as I look down now, is really making a bold bid to claw her back. She's working extremely hard. McKiernan now in 3rd. So 1, 2 and 3 are the big girls now running very, very well indeed. Ferreira, sorry, is in 3rd. So I think at some stage now we're going to see whether this bold bid by CHEPNGENO is going to last. It's a long way before she comes round again for the finish line. And Dias there in 2nd is really working hard to pull her back. So the battle is on.
Interesting, just when it looked like we were due for an upset, Dias and McKiernan not really showing for the first 5 or 10 minutes of this race, so they have now worked their way through. Dias, the reigning champion, in 2nd place. McKiernan, the silver medalist from last year, in 3rd. Ferreira, world half marathon champion, back in 4th at the moment. But CHEPNGENO still very much in a class of her own. There goes Ribeiro of Portugal. Keshe, 3rd in the cross-challenge standings there in the yellow of Romania. She's not having too good a race. That's Ferreira, Maya, Peter, all of them high up there on that man-made obstacle, being exposed to the wind and not really enjoying this race too much now as the drizzle continues to come down. The wind is still very, very strong indeed, and over on the far side of the course they'll have it in their faces. And if CHEPNGENO can just hold her head now, keep this lead together. Mike Kosgei there, the Kenyan coach, running alongside her, shouting advice. But Dias, well, Steve, is she closing?
She looks as if she is to me. Look at her leg cadence behind there. She really is starting to work hard. And I think she knows that there's not much to go now. You can tolerate the pain if it's only going to be for another 3 or 4 minutes. So she's really putting the big effort now to try and claw this gap of, 40 yards or more back on CHEPNGENO. And I think she's actually doing it, Tim. Only marginally, but she is doing it. And just behind her, McKiernan is also working hard to get that 3rd spot. So the race, I don't think, is over yet, although this gap is vast. CHEPNGENO really has got the rhythm to keep it going, but will she tire over these last stages? It'd be so sad if she does, because she really has taken the race by the scruff of the neck and worked so hard to get up there and get this gap. But it's all about who can get to the finish line first, and if you tire over the end, then there's nothing like a cross-country course to sap your strength, and other athletes come back at you so fast.
The problem for Dias here in 2nd place, of course, is that she too, like CHEPNGENO up in front, is isolated. If she was with somebody and she could work through towards CHEPNGENO, perhaps they could share the effort in closing down that gap. But as you can see, CHEPNGENO there goes through, Dias in 2nd, McKiernan in 3rd, alongside her Ferreira, the 2nd Portuguese. Alana Meyer, the Olympic silver medalist over 10,000 metres, back in 5th place at this stage, and then a slightly bigger group. But Dias has got a lot of work to do to catch CHEPNGENO, and not very long in which to do it now. Over the log for the final time. The pace these women are moving at, it doesn't present them with any problem at all. But CHEPNGENO, well, 30, 35 yards perhaps, that gap now. Her coach will be screaming at her now throughout the rest of this lap. As you can see, the bottom, the circle there at the bottom of that map indicates they've got half a lap to go now. That's about 2 or 3 minutes running for CHEPNGENO, and really, unless Dias produces something quite miraculous here, I think we're seeing another Kenyan gold.
She's such a lovely runner, CHEPNGENO, very relaxed rhythm, and such a long stride. She is deceptive, even though she looks to him that she might be tiring. I think that is her style. She doesn't take the obstacles with any discomfort, and you can see Dias has got a shorter clip stride, but I don't think at the end that she's going to claw it back, although, you know, you never know. Over the last stages of a cross-country race, I've seen some funny sights where athletes really do fall apart, but I think now the race is on for the bronze medal. I think maybe the first 2 positions are quite clearly cut.
certainly appears that way. Incidentally, the cross challenge standings, if Diaz here finishes in second place, but only a couple of places ahead of McKiernan, then the Irish girl will lift her third consecutive cross challenge title. Diaz will finish in second. Behind that, it begins to get a bit hazy. Keshek of Romania in third place in the cross challenge standings isn't having a good run at all. CHEPNGENO, of course, not concerned about the cross challenge standings. She's concerned about winning her first world title, and it certainly looks to be heading her way. She drives on there, still looking very strong. You're right, Steve, she's got a lovely light, relaxed style there, and it has pulled her away from the rest of this field without any problem at all in the second half. Around half a mile to go for CHEPNGENO. That's just over 2 minutes of running. We'll get a shot in a minute of what the gap is back to Diaz. Certainly there. It looks still to be a safe margin. Indeed, Ferreira, closing up on her teammate now, has pulled herself into third place, away from McKiernan. So the Portuguese, at the moment, in silver and bronze medal positions.
Good run from Ferreira. She's judged it almost perfectly. She's starting to claw back on Diaz, so she's keying off her. I don't think she will catch this girl up front. I think CHEPNGENO's run a terrific race to go almost from the word go, take the race by the scruff of the neck and power away. But the race on for the other medals is quite significant. And the Portuguese team, if they're backing up those two girls in second and third at the moment, are in with a chance of putting off the team medal. A fantastic performance that they can do that. But CHEPNGENO is now coming round the final curve. Still some distance to the finish line, but when she sees the crowd and the crowd respond to her, I think that's going to be the end for the rest of the athletes, because I don't think they're going to actually claw her back in this last home straight tip.
No, CHEPNGENO looking safe now. Well, look what's going on behind. McKiernan of Ireland, as usual, producing a superb sprint in the final stages, has moved through past the two Portuguese into the silver medal position, but she's left it too late. CHEPNGENO now won't be caught. She's in the finishing straight. The finish line in her sight. Look at McKiernan, driving hard still. Ferreira is in third place. Diaz, the reigning champion, is back in fourth and out of the individual medals. But it's 2-2-2. Helen CHEPNGENO, 2 years ago in this race, didn't take part in 1993. Well, she has today. She's taken gold. Kenya take gold in the senior women's World Cross Country Championship. Helen CHEPNGENO. McKiernan hanging on all the way to the line with that sprint for the silver. Ferreira takes third, and indeed Diaz being put back to fifth place there as 1-2-4 comes through for the Ethiopians in fourth place. That's M.DENBOBA. Keshek sprints home there for Romania, but the minor places being taken now by these athletes. The cross challenge standings will be worked out in due course. Certainly looks as though McKiernan, with that, the third consecutive silver medal in this championship behind CHEPNGENO's gold medal winning run, has won the cross challenge. 20:44 though for the Kenyan, and see what a brave, strong run from the front.
A fantastic run from CHEPNGENO to take the World Cross Country Women's title, and she deserved it all the way through that race, keeping the rhythm going when the challenges were on. A great run from McKiernan there, but she's almost forever the bridesmaid, never the bride, really. That's the third silver medal she's got in these championships, and that must be disappointing, although it's a great run nevertheless.
Helen CHEPNGENO then secures another gold for the Kenyan, 20:45 her time. McKiernan there, the silver medalist, for the third time now up on the roster, looking up at a gold medalist, and each time it's been a different gold medalist too. Consuelo Ferreira in this race last year, only 39th, improving, well, 36 places right through to third place. Team medalists then from the senior women's race on the rostrum. Portugal on top there. Only 8th back in 1993. This year the gold, thanks to Ferreira, Diaz, Ribeiro and Gama. But what a strong trio they have. The Portuguese winning with 55 points by a margin of 10 points from the Ethiopians, and a further 10 back to the Kenyans, who took the bronze medals. Katarina McKiernan then takes her third consecutive cross-challenge victory from Albertina DIAS. McKiernan with her third consecutive individual silver medal here at the championships winning with 141 points from her best 5 events. DIAS 123, a full 18 points behind. And Keshek of Romania, despite finishing down the field here today, taking the 3rd place overall in the cross challenge with 97. And so to the men's senior race. 5 laps of 2,320 metres, plus that 406-metre run into the finish, means they'll be running just over 12 kilometres. Past winners, well, Skah lifted 2 titles for Morocco in 90 and 91. Then John Ngugi lifting his 5th title in 92. William SIGEI last year took another gold for the Kenyans. But as this climax of the afternoon approaches, 281 men lining up representing 57 nations. We knew the senior women's race would be open, and so it turned out to be, with Portugal taking that team gold. But the Kenyans have won all 3 individual golds so far this afternoon, and one has to say they are favourites to complete the set in this event. SIGEI, the reigning champion, is in the field. Ismail Karui, perhaps the most significant absentee. He leads the cross-challenge standings at the moment, as you can see there, with 91 points. Bitok, Guerra of Portugal, and GEBRESILASIE filling the places in the top 3. SIGEI there, 3:17, the reigning champion. So just seconds to go then before the gun. In his 22nd running of the World Cross Country Championships for senior men. And they're away, 281 men. The hopeful ones will be out in the front early on. The Kenyans, though, of course, as we saw in the junior men's race, will ease their way through to the front after the first minute or 2 of running. And frankly, the chances are that they will stay there as well. 3:12, making a very early bid. That's Joseph KARIUKI, the 23-year-old Kenyan. They do run as a team, too. That's been a remarkable aspect of their tactics over the last few years, in which they've been totally dominant. If they win today, this will be the 9th consecutive win for the Kenyan senior men's team. But they do run as a team. They have things carefully worked out. They have people running out in front to pull the pace out early, and then the person that they want to win, who has been planned to win, will attach himself to the back of them without having to do too much work and come through in the latter stages. Steve, they do make a real art of these championships, don't they? Art of winning these championships, and really work at it.
Well, I think they're one of the few nations in the world that actually prepare thoroughly for it. I think most other nations take it as part of a overall season, which is geared perhaps towards the track season. But I think the Kenyans, above any other nation, take cross-country very seriously indeed. And that means that they have a training camp where they take all of their top runners to, and they have the ability to stay with these top runners for maybe 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And if you can do that with the calibre of athletes that they've got in somewhere like Kenya, then the results at the end of something like that training camp is what we've seen today, which is almost a devastating effect on the world cross country, because they dominate everything. Having said that, as GEBRESILASIE there, I've just saw mixing up there with the front 2 Kenyans. But as I think the Ethiopian challenge should be quite strong in this race, I think, Tim, and we might see the Kenyans dominating as much as they have done, perhaps in the junior men's, where they burnt off the Ethiopian challenge after about the first half of the race.
That's right. I think junior men's athletics more developed, or less developed rather, than it is at senior level. The Moroccans, Algerians and Ethiopians, all with very strong squads here, and as Steve said, in the junior men's race, the Kenyans had it very much their own way.
He really is a talent, I think, GEBRESILASIE there from Ethiopia. I watched him when he was a junior, winning the 5 and 10,000 metres in Seoul. And I realised then that we're seeing an exceptional talent, because he devastated the rest of the field in that. And in the way that he did it with almost consummate ease was an indication that here was a talent that if it came through to senior level, which it has done, as you see here today, then it's a talent that will challenge the Kenyans at their best. It's good to see a bit of challenge, because I think sometimes the Kenyans are so dominant that it almost demoralises the rest of the world. But GEBRESILASIE there in 2nd place, chasing the Kenyan Onwonyu, will be a figure to watch, because I think really he's got the speed at the end. If it comes to a speed, he finished with a 55-second last lap in the 10,000 metres in the World Championships, and if he can use that sort of speed in this particular sort of course, then the Kenyans have got to watch out.
Well, we were saying this race should be more competitive, but the Kenyans have laid out their stall very early on, with Onmoyo out in front. In second place is GEBRESILASIE. Addis Abebe in third at the moment. William SIGEI, the reigning champion, in fourth, and tucked in behind him is the first Moroccan, Skah, who we talked about earlier as having been the gold medalist here at 1990 and 1991. But behind these five, there's a whole line of Kenyans coming through. Indeed, most of the top 10 are Kenyans. There they go, look at that. Remember, 9 from each team in this event. The rest of the field filing through.
One of the strengths, I think, with the Kenyan teams, Tim, and which other teams don't have the luxury of having, is that if one or two of their top runners have an off day, they're backed up by that vast wealth of talent in the rest of the team. Whereas if, say, one or two of the Ethiopian team, for instance, who are a very strong team anyway, if GEBRESILASIE had an off day or the baby had an off day, they'd be struggling really to field a strong team. Whereas the Kenyans, you can see coming over this jump here, have got a backup team almost just behind them, and I think that that is so comforting if you're up front, knowing that, you know, even if you're having a bad day, you will probably still win the team event.
GEBRESILASIE and Abebe in second and third really ought to be keying themselves on William SIGEI. They've done their homework. They know that SIGEI is in very good form. He won the Kenyan Championships this year for the second time, and as reigning world champion and a man in very, very good form, they perhaps ought to be where Skah is in 5th or 6th position, just sitting back off the pace a little bit. If necessary, let MIYAZAKI go off ahead in front on his own, because he is not the sort of man, his qualifications are not good enough to win this title by a huge margin out in front. And I really do believe that certainly for the first half of this race, they could afford to let him go.
That's a good picture to show you the twisting type of course that they're actually running here at the moment. It doesn't really go up and down much, but it certainly switches around, causing you to move out wide round bends, take the best line you possibly can, then move again around the next bend to get the next best lie and the best traction for your feet underfoot. There's the Kenyan team manager just behind there urging these runners on. I don't think you have to do that very much. They're all around there. There isn't anybody slacking, I don't think, in the Kenyan team. I don't think it's allowed, really. Skah just at the back of that group. I can see he's running a canny race, I think, because he's just keying off for the pace. He's not up there. He's just relaxing in his own rhythm. I think that might be important as it comes towards the end. SIGEI just on the outside there, very relaxed runner as well, long striding. He's looking very casual indeed. He keeps glancing around to see what's happening around him. There he does again. But I think really he knows what's going on, and I think surely they must have sorted this out in the team tactics well before this the gun actually went. They know what's going to go on. They know that GEBRESILASIE is going to be a problem. The baby's going to be a problem. They know that Skah has got the fearsome kick of it, leave it to the last 200 or 300 meters. So really, at average speed there, look at that, 20.62 kilometers per hour. That is moving over rough terrain, believe you me. And I think that they realise that they've just got to keep it tanking out, Tim. And hopefully that Skah and a few others might drop off the pace. And I think that if MIYAZAKI starts to slacken, you'll see someone else take it up.
Two quite separate races, very clearly developing here. This leading quartet, or leading octet, I should say, of Rift Valley Africans, and Skah tucked in there as well from Morocco, and then way, way behind the rest of the world. Over the first of the man-mode obstacles, which at the moment don't appear to be doing any damage to anybody in that leading group. But I don't think it'll be long now, Steve, before we do start to see people peeling off the back of this group. It's got to start hurting one or two of them soon.
It was quite interesting there. I just saw that SIGEI looked across there as MIYAZAKI started to suffer a bit, and just as he did it, Songook, the other Kenyan, moved to the front and kept the pace going. So it was almost a glance as if to say, come on, you know, MIYAZAKI's tired, but Songook, I think we can actually, you know, get up there and start working hard, and that's exactly what's happened. And and as I said that now, the Ethiopians are making a challenge. A baby starts making a move. I think he was getting a bit pushed and a bit shoved there amongst all the Kenyans. He's a small man, and I think he wanted to just get out of all the trouble, because he was being pushed into some of the, as you see now, he's being pushed into some of the barriers as he goes past. And I think that wasn't something which he enjoyed too much, so he shot away from the rest of them there. But yes, there's going to be some tired athletes. At this sort of pace, Tim, you just cannot keep going all the way to the finish line. Someone has got to crack.
Each of these men, of course, hoping it won't be them. You look at the list of absentees from the Kenyan team, or men that have filled their team and performed with great honour in the last 3 or 4 years. It's quite remarkable. Ismail Kirui is not here, was not selected as a disciplinary measure, even though he leads the cross-challenge standings this winter. Kirui, of course, the world 5,000 metres champion. Moses Tenui, 1991 World 10,000 metres champion. He's not here. John Ngugi, of course, is not here. He too absent in controversial circumstances. And Joseph KARIUKI, World 10,000 metres champion, has never really participated in cross-country at any serious level. And he too will be watching this with interest. But that little challenge, that little surge from Abebe has been dampened. He's now back in third place as Mwoyo forces himself to the front. Skah still in touch. GEBRESILASIE still with his nose in front there in second place. Quite comfortable at this pace by the looks of things, but they are pulling further and further away from the rest. No doubt the medalists going to come from this group, but SIGEI there in fourth place in the middle of that group, looking perhaps the most comfortable, Steve. He's got this loping, relaxed, lazy-looking style, hasn't he?
Yes, I think you sense here at the moment that the pace isn't really as hard as it was in the first part of the race. They're actually vying to see who really wants to make the move early. And when I say make the move early, I mean from the real contenders out of this group. I think the Songook out in front there really is doing a Trojan job of work. But really, when it comes to the medals, I don't think he'll be in there amongst them. But let's not forget that we haven't mentioned the conditions here at the moment. The conditions are starting, the temperature's starting to drop somewhat, I think, Tim, and the wind really is at some parts of the course quite fierce. So if you're up front and you're leading the rest of the runners through, you really are actually taking quite a brunt of some of the wind at some stages. You can see them weaving across there. They're starting to overtake some of the back tail enders of this race. And I suppose the wind will be a factor as well, because having said that, people like GEBRESILASIE has been shielded virtually all through this race.
Yes, the wind still very strong, blowing across this course. But I remember in the 1986 World Cross Country Championships in Switzerland, it was very cold and windy. We thought the Kenyans wouldn't like it. It was the first year of the John Ngugi era, if you like, his first title of 4 consecutive titles, won at Neuchâtel in Switzerland in '86. And really the Kenyans ignore the conditions, if you like, the weather conditions, and just get on with the job at hand.
Well, SIGEI now starting to maybe take control of this race. He looked around there, and I think his teammates were suffering. I don't think he realised, I think he realised then that he couldn't rely on them too much more to take the pace. And just as he moved to the front, you see how they went into Indian file there, which is as if to say, right, then this is the man we've all got to beat. We'll just key off him, and that's exactly what they're doing. He looks so relaxed. Look at the way he's running there. I mean, most other runners are just struggling to keep the pace going. He looks as if he's just casually eased to the front there. And the other runners really are suffering behind him. Skah just behind the group there, you can see, is maybe just finding this pace a little bit hard, but he's been in that position virtually all the way through the race. He hasn't mixed it up with the other athletes. He's actually just let them get on with their own thing. But if he's not careful, there is a little bit of a gap developing there, and SIGEI up front will keep this rhythm going. GEBRESILASIE has been where he has been almost all the way through this race, just keying off the front runner. SIGEI just gave him a glance there as if to say, are you still with me? And GEBRESILASIE just moved up onto his shoulder and said, yes, I am.
Yes, Skah did look to be struggling there. Indeed, the Kenyan out in front, beckoning to GEBRESILASIE to take the lead. Now, Paul Turgat out in front. SIGEI made a move a couple of minutes ago towards the front, then thought better of it, perhaps waiting to make his move later on in the race. Skah was struggling, although the pace has slackened in the last minute or two and is now back with this group. But Turgat leads, the man who won the Kenyan Championships back in 1992. Very experienced, very strong. GEBRESILASIE, though, for my money, and SIGEI perhaps looking the most ominous at this stage, Steve. GEBRESILASIE even having time there to check around him, see who's with this group. You'll realise it's down to 5, that people have been peeling off the back now. And we haven't really mentioned much about this Abebe, who's tucked in there, the little Ethiopian, who's running very strongly. Well, remember, World Junior 10,000 metres record holder.
We're coming up now with 2 laps to go, and it really is still quite a long way to go before the finish, and we have seen some very, very hard pace right from the word go. So I honestly think that these athletes are going to start breaking up. They can't really or surely sustain this sort of pace towards the end of the race. But the real key men are still hanging back. They're not really throwing their cards down on the table as of yet. Skah is starting to come back. He's started to get maybe his second win. He looked as if at one stage there when the Kenyans started to put the pressure on that he was going off the back, but he's moved back yet again into the pack. So Skah with that fearsome finish is still in there. So's Abebe, so's GEBRESILASIE, and so's SIGEI. The top contenders are all there or thereabouts. Going over that man-made bridge, across there, over the fence, down the other side. All these things are put to break the rhythm, but they're really only breaking the rhythm of some of the other guys behind, because the tempo up front has been fierce from the word go.
A few shots there of athletes further back down the field. The downside of this fast running at the front from the Kenyans and the Ethiopians is that it does force everybody else, even if they don't go with this pace at the front, to run faster than they want. And a lot of men misjudging their effort in these World Championships and perhaps running the first half faster than they would like, and instead of finishing to their potential in the 40s or 50s, finishing outside the first 100. Well, GEBRESILASIE beginning to move away now with Turgat. That's a gap of 6 or 7 meters from SIGEI, but he looks so relaxed, the reigning champion, in third place. I honestly don't think it's anything to worry about from his point of view. He has got a devastating finish. He's a 7:39 3,000 meter man. He's run 13:07 for 5,000 meters. And those are the sort of credentials you need to live with this pace. Khalid Skah, again at the back of that group, Steve, still doesn't look too comfortable, does he? When the pace slackens, he gets back in touch with them, but he's looking under pressure to me.
Well, I think he's doing a good job in hanging on as best he can, really, Tim, but he's watching SIGEI. I've noticed whenever SIGEI moves up or starts to close a gap, he moves up as well. So I think really he's the man that he's keying off of. But as you can see, he's finding it difficult. As you say, look, he's dropping off the pack somewhat. There's a baby, he's dropped back. So now there's only one threat to the Kenyan dominance yet again, and that's the little man GEBRESILASIE, whose pitter-patter stride is really causing the Kenyans some problems. They've thrown virtually the rest of the team at him now. There's only really SIGEI that hasn't taken his turn up front. Turgat is doing another good job of taking the strain and getting out there and working hard. But everything that they've thrown at GEBRESILASIE, he's just come back at. He's been in that second spot virtually all the way through this race. What is it now? Only 1.5 laps to go. So he's got about 7 minutes maybe or less of running. And to be honest, I think that if GEBRESILASIE can hang on in there with the rest of the Kenyans, and he can lose people like Skah with a devastating finish, and if he can just keep maybe 5 or 6 yards ahead of SIGEI coming into the last home straight. They're looking around again at each other. SIGEI's looking at GEBRESILASIE, and they're just saying, or almost looking at each other, just to say, well, you know, what do we do now? We've tried everything on you as best we can. We're just going to ease off the pace. And I think they're doing that. They're actually easing off the pace because they're bunching up a bit more, and that may give Khalid Skah a chance to catch them up.
Yes, Skah in need of another slackening up in front. Well, the race is gone for him. Addis Abebe really suffering now, back in 6th place. This is where the Kenyans will turn the screw. SIGEI moves to the front and starts pouring on the pace. I think he realizes what's going on behind. He realizes the Moroccan threat is over. He realizes the Ethiopian threat of Abebe is gone. It's now down to GEBRESILASIE, SIGEI, and the Kenyans, 3:11 and 3:99. 3:11, that's CHEMOIYWA, a 13:09 5,000 man. Paul Turgat is 3:19. He's a 27:18 10,000 man. Those two unlikely to stay with SIGEI and GEBRESILASIE. What a wonderful climax to this race it would be if these two were battling it out in the final half lap. But SIGEI now gone to the front, and it looks as though the race is on in earnest. It's really been sorted out now, the men from the boys, Steve. And SIGEI is doing something serious here. He's not messing around.
Well, it took some time. It almost took to the last lap, but I think now we're seeing the true race come through. William SIGEI of Kenya has thrown the gauntlet down. GEBRESILASIE has taken it up. GEBRESILASIE there was really just looking at the shorts of the next man in front, and SIGEI decided that the pace wasn't fast enough, and I think that's right, really. He really has got to start surging on here. He's really got to test this little man from Ethiopia behind him, because I don't think that he has been tested really in any event that I've actually watched him. And that includes World Championships, World Junior Championships, and anything else that you can throw at this little man from Ethiopia. I think he's an awesome talent. And I think that the Kenyans really have got their work cut out to try and lose this man, and they've got to do it. 26 minutes, 41 seconds into the race. And there's the 3 Kenyans and the 1 Ethiopian, and the medals will be decided between them. But my money would be on, I think, GEBRESILASIE if it comes to a sprint, because I don't think he's put a foot wrong during this race. The Kenyans have tried everything they can as far as tactics. They've thrown the rest of the team at this man. SIGEI is the only one really, I think, that's got any strength left. Although, having said that, there are another two Kenyans around him. But SIGEI is the key man. I think that all the tactics have been geared towards. And now I think he knows he's got to get up there and start working hard.
Well, if anything surprises me, it is that SIGEI hasn't worked harder to break up this group now. He's gone to the front and really not put on the pace quite as hard as I would have expected him to. He's still got 3 men sitting in behind him. He's the man doing the work now. He's taken on the psychological and physical burden of making the pace. And GEBRESILASIE, well, things are looking good for him at the moment. as you say, Steve, he hasn't put his nose in front yet. Just enjoying the ride now from these three Kenyans. And they've got a lot of work to do to get rid of this young man. Remember, this circuit just a couple of kilometres round. That's only about 6 minutes running for these men, even less. And as they hit the bell now, 1 lap to go. GEBRESILASIE looking very, very comfortable. SIGEI has dropped back into third. Thought better, perhaps, of going so early. 3 Kenyans against 1 Ethiopian. Skah isolated back in 5th place for Morocco. Behind him, Abebe in the distance there in the white T-shirt for Ethiopia. And then the rest of the field following through in virtual single file. Surely the 3 medalists going to come from this group unless Skah can raise one of his famous sprints over the final half mile or so. But GEBRESILASIE, well, world 10,000 metres champion. Is there another gold in the prospect here?
6 minutes of running left, I think, Tim. The last lap was about 6:40 for the for the lap, and I think that there are obviously 40 seconds or so into this lap now. They're just taking 1 or 2 of the obstacles, going over the fences. But you saw there as they went through the bow how GEBRESILASIE looked around and saw the 3 Kenyans, and the 3 Kenyans just looked across at each other to say, well, what happens now? What do we do now? And I don't think really they've mustered any tactics, as you quite rightly pointed out. I don't think SIGEI is running fast enough to burn the rest of the Kenyans off, let alone GEBRESILASIE. Someone really over this last lap has got to say, right, this is where I'm going to commit myself. This is where I'm going to go for gold. Because if I don't think it's going to be a 4-man sprint to the line over the last 200 metres.
So fast over the final few hundred metres. GEBRESILASIE has looked very, very strong in his outings in the cross-challenge circuit throughout this winter. SIGEI, on the other hand, their number 317, the reigning champion, hasn't raced a great deal on the European circuit. He did win the Kenyan championships for the 2nd year running and has to be the favourite in this sort of situation. But one wonders whether or not he's got the speed to handle GEBRESILASIE in the final 400 metres. And it's maybe up to the teammates of SIGEI and the other 2 Kenyans to break up this group in the next couple of minutes before they hit the finishing straight. Otherwise the writing could be on the wall for SIGEI. The Kenyans desperately keen, of course, to retain this title.
They are now right over the back part of the course. It's very windy over there. It's exposed, and there's not much cheering going on from the spectators, but the Kenyans are doing their best. They've obviously got the team situation wrapped up here, unless unforeseen circumstances, which I can't foresee, mean that the other runners behind them are having a bad run, but I don't see they're so far behind we can't actually pick them up at the moment. But I think the team position is quite clear. Kenyan have got that. It's whether they're going to take the individual title. If they do, they've got a clean sweep of the titles here today, which would be a fabulous performance from one nation. The only man that could possibly deprive them of that is the little Ethiopian GEBRESILASIE there, 185, who really is looking so good at the moment. SIGEI there, 317, also looking very, very good. And that means that with little more than, say, a mile or so to go, we're in for quite a classic finish.
Yes, in the background there, Skah still holding on to that 5th place, but the individual medals surely going to come from this group. SIGEI back in 3rd place now, biding his time as the spectators swarm across towards the finishing straight. They realise the climax of this marvellous race is just a minute or so away. 3 Kenyans, 1 Ethiopian. GEBRESILASIE in 2nd place, where he's been throughout most of this race. The reigning champion, William SIGEI, back in 3rd at the moment. What can the Kenyans do to rid themselves of GEBRESILASIE? The reigning world 10,000 metres champion, remember, in very controversial circumstances in Stuttgart when Moses Tanui lost a shoe at the bell. GEBRESILASIE out-sprinted him there. Can he do the same to these Kenyans today?
It's coming now to the last part of the race. SIGEI is making his move. GEBRESILASIE is covering it, Tim. And this is the last part, the last long sprint for home. SIGEI is pouring it on here. What an awesome sprint. GEBRESILASIE is starting to slip now, and it looks as if SIGEI has got it. SIGEI now coming away from Kenya. GEBRESILASIE trying to hang on there for the silver medal. But in the end, it was a magnificent performance from SIGEI, coming through here now to take the gold medal for Kenya. GEBRESILASIE trying desperately hard to hang on there for 2nd place, but he's been overtaken now by CHEMOIYWA for the silver. Kenya gets it again, another magnificent victory for the 1993 world champion, has again retained his title, and it looks as if Kenya would again dominate the team race. 34 minutes of absolutely scintillating performance there from the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. And there's the winner. Tactically, I think, Tim, a superb race. I thought maybe he'd just left it a little bit too long for that finish with the calibre of GEBRESILASIE. There's Skah just coming through. But in the end, really, he did everything right. And really, his sprint finish was superb.
SIGEI and CHEMOIYWA first and second. Turgat in fourth, Songok in sixth, Skah, the first Moroccan, in fifth place there. GEBRESILASIE managing to get an individual medal, but really disappointing there perhaps in the home straight. And the Kenyan tactics of drawing that sting out of the World 10,000 metres champion worked perfectly. Point scores then of the men's senior relief. Kenya winning the team competition from Morocco and Ethiopia. The North Africans splitting the Rift Valley countries, 34 to Kenya, 83 to Morocco, and Ethiopia, they're suffering with their last three scorers way down, taking the bronze. Final results then in the World Cross Challenge standings. Haile GEBRESILASIE, with his run here today, goes on top of the list, 107 points. He'll take home $10,000. William SIGEI, thanks to his double points here with that victory, takes second place, $8,000 to him, and Ismail Kirui's absence proving crucial. He's reduced to third place, $6,000 for him with 91 points. Gera, in 13th place, was the first European and finishes in fourth. William SIGEI then, two-time world cross-country champion, on top of the rostrum with his fellow medalists. Simon CHEMOIYWA, perhaps a surprise silver medalist there, his teammate Haile GEBRESILASIE being out-sprinted there for the bronze medal for Ethiopia. That brings to a close then yet another IAAF World Cross Country Championship that has belonged to the Africans. The Kenyans dominant in all four individual races, just a fabulous running of Portugal's senior women stopping their clean sweep of the team titles. Victories for Sally Barsocio and Helen CHEPNGENO in the two women's events, with both Philip Mosima and William SIGEI retaining the junior and senior titles respectively for the men. For the Kenyans, more gold and glory in Budapest. For the rest of the world, it's back to the drawing board after a scenario that in world distance running circles has become so familiar. From myself, Tim Hutchings, and Steve Ovett in Budapest, goodbye.